Maine Democrats are scrambling to pick a new U.S. Senate candidate as the scandal-plagued winner of last month's primary says he's withdrawing from the race. Graham Platner announced his decision to step away last night following new sexual assault allegations.
I know that some will think it's an admission of guilt, and it most certainly is not. We're not doing it because of the allegations. We're doing it because of the structures that are being taken away from us by those in power. We believe that for the movement to continue, it can't be me. And for that reason, we are suspending campaign operations.
Democrats in Maine have just 18 days to name a replacement nominee to take on incumbent Republican Susan Collins. We're joined now by Ashley Etienne, who served as communications director for former Vice President Kamala Harris, and before that, communications director and senior advisor to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Platner's campaign went from insurgent success story to complete implosion. What does his rise and collapse say about the Democratic Party right now?
I mean, I think to some degree this speaks to the desperation of the Democratic Party. We're so desperate to find a working class candidate, white male in particular, that can appeal and carry the progressive banner at all costs. And that's what we're seeing right now play out at all costs, that part of it. And so that's what I think that is at play. But the reality is Platner himself is to blame. His campaign is to blame. I'm sure you recall, over a year ago, his wife turned over explicit text messages between him and women, and a set of women. Another woman came out. Like, this was well known to the campaign. The wife, in fact, even said, this is going to be your vulnerability as a campaign, and they ignored it. So to some degree, you know, it's that desperation to find that one sort of white savior to some extent that the party's been searching for that has put us in a position to ignore all these indiscretions.
Well, the Maine Democratic Party says it's going to host a nominating convention. They issued a statement on social media today, but provided few details about precisely how this process is going to work. Democrats, as you well know, went through a very different, but in some ways similar, candidate replacement process in 2024 with Vice President Kamala Harris and then President Joe Biden. What lessons should Maine Democrats take away from what Democrats at the national level experienced back then?
Such a good question. One is you have to move quickly to seize this opportunity. You don't want any grass to grow underneath your feet. We saw that happen with Kamala Harris. I think there was about 3 or 4 weeks before it was decided that she was going to be the nominee. The second is you've got to pick someone who's going to have the ability to raise a lot of money, appeal to progressives. And then I would say the third lesson that's learned is that it cannot look like an insider job. It cannot look like those on the inside are putting their thumb on the scale for one particular candidate. And it appears that the Maine Democratic Party is fully aware of all of these lessons and are trying to take the right steps to ensure that the process is fair, transparent, and enables those progressives that are following Platner to come to the table.
Well, right now you've got several candidates trying to position themselves for the nomination. Take a look.
Maine deserves a fighter in this seat, and I will be that fighter.
People are rightfully pissed off because the system is rigged against them.
I want these issues to come forward. I want people to continue to feel like Democrats are fighting for them.
We need a candidate with backbone who can unite that party together and Maine voters. And I think I'm the best person to beat Susan Collins.
A candidate with backbone, a candidate who can fight. Platner built this coalition around anger at the Democratic establishment. How did Democrats choose a replacement candidate without alienating the voters who powered Platner's success?
I mean, that's going to be the fine line they're going to have to walk. Not only do you not want to alienate his supporters and those progressives, but you've got to appeal to independent voters. That's how you win Maine. I mean, I think we're so consumed with progressives, but the reality is you're going to have to outperform with both independents and progressives. You know, Collins is such a force because she understands intimately those independent voters. They have been the voters that have, you know, been key to her winning that seat year after year, cycle after cycle. So you're going to have to find someone who has an ability to really bridge both of those divides. We were unsure whether or not Platner had that ability. So now you kind of the party has almost an opportunity to really start fresh and refocus on, how do we find someone who can, again, do both of these, appeal to progressives while bringing independents to the table.
How much has this entire episode damaged the party's chances at picking up this seat?
People are feeling somewhat optimistic. We were feeling optimistic before, but somewhat optimistic now. I think it's going to depend on how quickly and how seamlessly this process goes forward. The reality is, the objective has to be do the least amount of damage as possible on the ground there. So I think people are feeling optimistic, but just fairly optimistic.
Fairly optimistic.
Yeah, fairly optimistic.
Ashley Etienne, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks
Thank
for being
you for
here.
having me.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.